Small businesses, we're recording. Well, small business issues like tax, regulation, and business support and the high street are often centre to political debate. Many businesses feel they aren't heard in the Senedd. Indeed, only 4% of the evidence taken for Senedd committees comes from private sector businesses, with small businesses likely to be only a fraction of that number. So we see it as our role to make a difference to that, to change that, to build stronger engagement between businesses in our communities across Wales and the politicians that are elected to serve them. And that's why we're here today. So we've got a packed agenda. We're going to be 45 minutes in total, so we're going to go pretty quickly. We'll share some of our latest evidence and research, some of the key policy issues we're talking about before hearing directly from three of our leading members. We've been taking questions in the run-up to the webinar. We'll visit a few of those as we go through later on. And there's an opportunity to submit questions via the question and answer function on Zoom as well. So please do send them in. Don't hesitate. I can't promise we'll get to all of them, but we will absolutely try our best. And as I mentioned just a little bit earlier, the session will be recorded and shared after the event. So please don't hesitate to contact us if you have any questions afterwards. But without any further pause, let's get into the detail, and I'm going to pass over to my colleague Llyr Gareth, who's going to talk us through some of our latest data and research. Over to you, Llyr.
Diolch yn fawr, Josh. Dawn da pawb. Diolch am ddod. Good afternoon, everybody, and thanks for coming. So, my name's Dr. Llyr Gareth. Sorry, let me get to the right slide. And I'm the head of policy for FSB Wales. Myself and my policy colleague, Felix Milbank, will start by just doing the science bit, as it were, looking out over some of the work from our recent Wales survey of SMEs, and we'll be picking up some bits from our wider UK surveys as well. This then underpins and provides an evidence basis for our manifesto and our policy asks of the next Welsh Government, which my colleague Stephen Crane-Jenkins will later discuss as well as part of our presentations. So you're also getting something of a sneak preview here. We're looking to release this data then and analysis after the upcoming election. So hopefully it's well worth your attendance to get that sneak preview. But also keep an eye out for that document and for that release after the election. And hopefully that will allow anybody on the call to be able to understand better the needs of small businesses, to be able to speak to those needs and to those priorities, and to look to make things better for businesses in Wales. So this is what we did. We did an extensive survey, which we called our Big Small Business Survey, to get the voices of small businesses. This was in order to get their voices and for our manifesto, and to outline their priorities and the issues that concern them the most. We believe it's a good evidence basis. The survey response of 350 small businesses, which was conducted between July and October 2025, is quite a strong sample. Especially when we think of it as businesses and not like the general public. Just to note, I guess, it's important to note that this evidence and some of the UK evidence that we have predates the Iran conflict and those effects. It's important, I think, that you note that our asks remain the same. There have been long-standing issues for small businesses, which we are calling on all governments to deal with. And we believe that the Iran conflict basically exacerbates those issues. So it makes it more important and more urgent for governments to respond to those needs and to provide the support and get rid of the barriers to small businesses that we have called for the past year or two. The sample that we have is a good spread across all local authorities, so it's properly pan-Wales. It's cross-sectoral and representative of business demographics. In other words, the sectors that we expect to be larger are larger and fits the general business population as we know it. We had 39 questions across all main issues, covering everything from procurement to high street to tax to regulation to skills and, all the bits in between. So the idea was to have that comprehensive view of what businesses want and need. And I think I'll start with looking at the motivations for running a business. As everybody will be aware, it's quite a tough time economically, and I guess this is actually a real live question for people. And so we did ask the question, why do you run your business? And we asked for the two main reasons. And I think this is a really interesting response. Please note then that 65% of businesses, by far the largest, note they are in their business because they are passionate about it. That is, they care about the issue, they have expertise on the issue. This is the thing that drives them. 50% want to make money, and that's absolutely great as well, of course. And it's important to note as well, the small businesses are quite an autonomous and independent lot. 39% said it gives me control over my work-life balance. So there's a level of independence there. The resilience that they show is linked to their passion. But have a think about that. 65%, two-thirds of people say they are passionate about their business. That not only reflects well on the sector, but is also a huge resource and possibly untapped resource for Welsh government, for all governments to look to raise the level of the economy, to raise prosperity, and to help our local communities throughout Wales. It's important to note as well that 58% of our sample said they have aspirations to grow. 34% said they wanted to stay the same size, and the rest left were the only ones wanting to downsize. So that's 6 out of 10, essentially, people of these businesses looking to grow. 65% are passionate about their business. That's a passion and aspiration that we need to tap into, and which the next Welsh Government needs to prioritise to help the small business economy for sustainable growth embedded across every part of Wales. So, in order to look at how to do that and what businesses themselves have said are their priorities, I'm now going to pass on to my colleague Felix Milbank, who will outline what our survey respondents said.
Diolch, Llŷr. So from the survey that we ran, we found that overall only 14% competed on and won public contracts. And 48% of businesses are currently experiencing late payments in the past year, and some of that is comprised of public contracts. In terms of current sentiment to hot topics such as the visitor levy, 64% of respondents are currently opposed to the visitor levy, compared to 16% who are in favour of it, which kind of gives you an understanding of how things such as the visitor levy are just not desirable at the moment. At a time when firms are facing increasing tax and regulatory burdens. And 53% are currently describing their town as bleak or bad, which is quite a statement for firms these days. Next slide, please. So I'll just quickly go over the current economic environment and the pressures that businesses are currently facing in Wales. To be absolutely frank with you, businesses right now are navigating essentially a perfect storm of everything. Confidence is low, costs are high, and revenues are shrinking. In February alone, consumer spend dropped by 19 points. And as of April 2026, consumer confidence in Wales dropped from -9% to -26%, the lowest it's ever been recorded in the past 26 years. That combination doesn't leave much room to breathe, let alone grow. And when we look at business sentiment in Wales, the data backs this up. In Wales, 63% of businesses are pessimistic about the Welsh economy and only 10% are optimistic. But here's the interesting part. 52% of firms who responded to our survey have indicated to us that they're actually optimistic about their own business. So there is resilience there, and people believe in what they're building, even if they're worried about the environment around them. This, of course, then mixed with the global and external pressures, as Llŷr alluded to there. Tensions in Iran are pushing commodity and energy prices up, costs that feed directly into margins. UK firms are largely shielded at the moment. However, for firms who are in the middle of changing energy contracts with providers, these will be the first to witness an increase in their energy bills. For context, higher fuel prices have pushed the UK inflation rate up from 3% to 3.3% in Q1 of 2026. In terms of tariffs, this is something that has reared its head to us in the past 3 months. 62% of UK firms with direct trade exposure to the US say they will be negatively impacted by the tariffs. Next slide, please. So what can Welsh Government do? And this is the really interesting part for us as an organisation, because as a policy team, we obviously look at all the data that comes into us and we try and distill through that and look at practical policy suggestions that we can put forward to government to enact in order to alleviate some of those pressures. The first place to start really is around probably the business rates and to introduce a new business rates multiplier for retail, and to increase the current threshold to £15,000, so that businesses start to pay business rates at a much later date. We've also found that businesses are starting to highlight to us the needs of improved public transport in Wales, particularly around industrial estates where they rely on their workers to be able to get there on time, and particularly in flexible hours. And business support. Firms consistently tell us as well that improved business support here in Wales would directly help them in terms of being able to understand the current economic landscape and being able to understand what support is in place for them to be able to pursue growth. In terms of the 5 key issues for businesses, lower business taxes. 72% of firms have told us now that this is the top priority for them. Better and simpler regulation. We often think that perhaps firms are actually looking to deregulate, but actually firms are telling us that sometimes it's about just understanding the regulatory landscape. And so a better understanding and better comms from Welsh Government would be appreciated in order for them to understand what they are required to comply with. And as mentioned, access to business support and access to finance are additional top priorities. An interesting caveat that we've also picked up on in the past few months is also access to appropriate skilled staff. A recent stat that we pulled out of our survey as well is that only 8% of firms at the moment are looking to introduce apprenticeships within their business, suggesting that there is a hesitancy around bringing on new employed staff, perhaps because of the backdrop of wider economic conditions in the economy. Diolch.
Good afternoon, Prynhawn da chi gyd. Thank you for joining us today. My name is Stephen Crane Jenkins, and I'm the Head of Public Affairs for FSB here in Wales. I'd like to extend a warm welcome to all our FSB members, to the candidates standing in the election, and to our wider stakeholders. Thank you for giving up your time today on what must be a very busy period for you all. During this section of the webinar, I want to give you a whistle-stop understanding of how our manifesto was developed and how our pre-election work was created. Next slide, please. The FSB Wales manifesto was developed and informed by a range of intelligence. This included our Big Small Business Survey, feedback from our suite of conferences and networking events across Wales, our touch points with almost 2,000 businesses across Wales over the last 12 months, engagement with all political parties at the Senedd and those parties expecting to be at the Senedd, our network of stakeholders, and important, it was overseen by our FSB Wales Member Advisory Council, or MAC for short. The manifesto has been on a bit of a tour. We attended each of the party conferences over recent months. We engaged with portfolio holders at these events, and in some instances held fringe events, and generally promoted the key asks for small and medium-sized enterprises in our manifesto. We also fully engaged with all the parties during the manifesto's development and ensured we could support them as appropriate with information, data, and wider intelligence. As part of the manifesto and pre-election process, we also engaged with an ex-BBC filmmaker and FSB Wales member to produce 12 films in support of our manifesto, 6 of these in Welsh and 6 in English. All the films highlight the asks within our manifesto, and they feature real business owners from all parts of Wales, north to south, and from rural Wales to urban Wales. We really wanted to get a flavour of what our membership looks like within these films. We also produced a dedicated website in support of our manifesto and pre-election work. Not only does this include the videos I've just outlined, it also contains important information about the election and all the changes that are taking place, from the new electoral system to the new constituencies and names, and changes to a number of rules going forward. Importantly, we once again engaged with all political parties, and each party was invited to submit questions and answers based on our manifesto. All but 2 of the main parties contesting the election did so. And all the information I've just been talked about can be found on our website at www.fsb.org.uk/Wales. Next slide, please. As you can see, our manifesto contains 5 main pillars. 1, small business at the heart of government. 2, vibrant places. 3, real-world productivity. 4, reducing the cost of doing business. And 5, successful people. The videos we produce directly cover all of these areas in much more detail. Next slide, please. Underneath all of the 5 pillars of our manifesto sit a number of asks, and here are just an assortment of those asks. I won't go through them in detail, but you can see them on screen. Hopefully, when you read our manifesto, and hopefully you already have, you will see that our manifesto, our pillars, our asks, have some welcome crossover in many of the manifestos from the political parties. Next slide, please. FSB Wales is an apolitical member-led organisation that exists to promote and campaign on behalf of SMEs across Wales. We will work with the next government to do this, and we'll also work with the Senedd committee bodies and the wider cross-party groups to achieve this, which will involve FSB Wales working with all political parties in Wales. Specifically to the Senedd candidates who are watching today, who have kindly joined us, whether you're elected next week or not, please know that in FSB Wales, you have an organisation who's there to help and support you going forward in many ways. So in closing my section, thank you to all the members, individuals, parties and organisations who have inputted into our manifesto and pre-election work. And please do visit fsb.org.uk/Wales for the information. And I'll hand back now to Head of FSB Wales, Josh.
Fantastic. Thank you, Stephen. Diolch, Stephen. And thank you, Llyn and Felix as well. So, look, we've given you a flavour of some of the work we've been doing. We've given you a taste of the data. There's a lot more there if you're interested in it and you want to hear more. But now I think it's better for you to hear directly from our own members, from 3 of our leading members, about what the world really feels like to them at the moment. So I'm delighted that we're going to move into a question and answer discussion with John Hurst, who's the chair of FSB Wales and owner of B2B IT Services, with Emma Owen Davis, co-founder and director of Barford Owen Davis, and Victoria Mann, the owner of Near Me Now. So welcome, the 3 of you, to the discussion, and looking forward to hearing what you have to say. Let's start off, if you wouldn't mind, with a little bit of background on yourselves. Tell us a little bit about your business, what you do, and how you came to be involved with FSB's work, I suppose. And perhaps, John, if we start with you, because you can take that opportunity to talk a little bit about being chair of FSB Wales as well and what that entails.
Sure, thanks very much, Josh. So, yeah, I'm chair of FSB Wales. Great honour to also chair the Member Advisory Council. I also run B2B IT services. So we have offices in Cardiff and also Bristol, and we serve customers throughout the UK. The business has been going for around 25 years now. And we provide tech services to businesses, advisory services, and also cybersecurity services as well. We've grown quite a bit, particularly over the last 5 or 6 years, by acquiring a number of other businesses. And we've had funding from Development Bank of Wales, and we've worked with a number of professional firms to support us in this process throughout the last 5 years, resulting in really we have now a strong senior leadership team that run the business day to day. And so myself and my business partner focus more on the strategic element. I got involved in FSB because it was at a time when we were looking to grow the business, and we needed to get further support, certainly from legal element. The legal help was fantastic for us. And also I was particularly interested, we were having some challenges around apprenticeships, and I was very interested around the policy work that FSB was doing around apprenticeships at the time. So that's the journey, whistle stop tour of the journey of B2B, but also why I got involved in FSB.
Fantastic. Thanks, John. Emma, over to you.
Thank you, diolch. I'm Emma Owen Davis. I'm the co-founder of Barford Owen Davis. We're a team of 13 finance professionals who support owner-managed businesses, generally small and medium businesses across Wales. I've spent my entire life, apart from 3 years at uni, living and working in Wales, both north and south. And I'm just really passionate about making Cymru the sort of best that it can be. I work with some amazing businesses, and I'm just, joined the FSB last year as a member of the advisory members council, just to give that voice to my client base and help them get the support and voice that they deserve as well. And I've thoroughly enjoyed the involvement I've had so far, and also in helping with this manifesto as well.
Lovely. Thank you, Emma. Victoria, last but not least, over to you.
Hi, I'm Vic. I'm CEO and founder of a company called Near Me Now. We're the creators of Visitor Smart Towns. Visitor is a digital platform for town centres, which was developed through a Welsh Government and Cardiff Capital Region innovation programme. We work with UK Champion High Street, 5 councils, 4 Welsh Government departments, and a host of stakeholders across town centres. And we're quite proud that whilst we are a tech business, that we keep one foot firmly in town as well. So our platform is live in Wrexham and currently delivering over £700,000 of annual value into independent high street business annually. There's a case study on the Smart Towns Wales Welsh Government website if anyone wants to go and read how we did that. I'm a values-based female tech founder, still a rarity in Wales, although there are a cluster of us that still support each other. And I guess in terms of being a member of MAT, I represent businesses outside the city-centric narrative, being from the valleys. We were also fortunate enough to get investment from the Development Bank of Wales back in 2018. And as I previously just mentioned, we secured innovation funding as well through challenge funding. But we've also been fortunate to get into that elusive public procurement supply chain. So my interest within the MAC is quite diverse, really, from town through to small business and the growth of our businesses that are developing innovative products and moving them forward past pilot stage. So quite varied, and I've been delighted to be involved in the manifesto. My favourite part of that was obviously being presented with our input, but also being able to shape, even tweak at the last minute as well when things weren't, maybe needed tweaking slightly. We really have got thoroughly involved. It's been a sleeves rolled up opportunity and really getting involved in that. So it's lovely to see our thoughts and our opinions getting shared on a wider basis.
Lovely. Thank you, Vicky. Yes, that's really good to hear. Glad you enjoyed that process. It can be a bit tricky sometimes, but when we get it right and we all roll our sleeves up, we manage to make the voice matter, I think. So, look, one of the key things from the survey data just now was around confidence. I think everybody's aware there's a big knock to confidence at the moment. The survey data shows in particular a lack of confidence in the Welsh economy, but quite a lot of confidence in individual businesses and business owners about their own business. So maybe let's start there. And Emma, I'll go to you first. How does it feel out there at the moment for you? Like, what do you think the economy feels like from a perspective in your clients, but also in your own business?
I think generally owner-managed business people go into business because they are ambitious people and they want to succeed, they want to grow. I think at the moment it just feels like sort of body blows from all sides with how different taxes have risen, minimum wage rises as well, and different things. And I think that the sort of risk and reward for owner managed business just feels like it's sort of lost that balance recently. I think most people would like to be investing in more technology or additional things, but the level of costs and sort of worries in the economy at the moment just make people less confident to do that. So yeah, that's where I sort of feel at the moment, is that you've got really good people and really good businesses across Wales that just need to feel that they've got just a little bit more room to manoeuvre, and then that would actually have such a good impact on the whole economy as well, if we're just given a bit more freedom to do that.
Yeah, sounds very representative of what we hear when we chat to members. John, how does it feel for you? Similar kind of thing?
Yeah, similar, and I think to add, to add to what Emma's saying, I think the body blows are particularly hard to take because it feels like the economic strategy just isn't quite there. It's hard to understand what the long-term economic strategy is. Um, and then that leaves us navigating uncertainty, which is really challenging. So I think if there's a long-term strategy where it's understood why certain things are happening, why those body blows are happening, because actually this is the short term, but the long-term goal is this. I think we would absolutely understand that. But I think, within the manifesto, there's that call for a new economic strategy. And I think it just needs to be crystal clear in its aspiration, because SMEs, I think, are looking right now saying, well, what is the aspiration for SMEs? What is the new government looking to do? And I think, my hope would be that whoever forms the next government would come out very strongly on that and very clearly, because that's what we're all looking for. Because like Emma said, we're aspirational, and like Clea showed, people are passionate about what they do when they set up their business. So with that right environment, with that aspiration and direction, I think people can get behind that and really move the Welsh economy forward.
Yeah, thanks, John. And Victoria, I suspect you'd agree as well. We talk about passion. You managed to talk about the valleys almost instantly. Someone from the valleys, I know how that passion runs through thinking. How does it feel from your perspective? You're on mute at the moment.
I think we all agree that our small businesses, and particularly our micro businesses, carry a lot of risk, and where there are pressures in medium-sized businesses, we're at the bottom of the food chain, and that risk and those cash flow problems tend to cascade downwards. So payment terms for me are a huge factor in allowing those SMEs and micro businesses to grow into our medium-sized businesses. Um, Even last week, one of the phrases that I heard was, sorry, that payment hasn't been made because I haven't been paid yet. And that's the reality on the ground, really. We all kind of understand, when you're a supplier, we understand the needs of other suppliers. We all understand each other's situation. So yeah, late payments for me, and ensuring that, the bigger players, our anchor institutions, our public bodies, are able to play their part to ensure that that cash is getting fed into the ecosystem and into the economy, so that it does filter down and that those challenges are not felt at the coalface.
Yeah, absolutely. So just a gentle reminder, we do have a Q&A function. So we've got a couple of questions that have come in, and we have had plenty of questions from people when they registered as well. So please don't be shy. If you've got a question, post it in and we'll try and get round to it. We've got about 10, 15 minutes left, so we've got plenty of time to get into the detail. But first of all, I'm going to go back to you, Victoria, with one of the questions we had beforehand, which was around business rates. So obviously you're working with a lot of town centre based businesses in different towns across Wales. What's your take on the business rate system? Like how does it feel at the moment, do you think, for businesses out there on the high street?
It has always come up in every conversation. It is a challenge, and I think My thoughts on sort of planning our out of town and the balance between online and the high street is, is pretty obvious really when your heart is passionate about our places and our high streets. Yeah, the business rates at the moment has really, I know I just mentioned about cash flow, but it's really put our high street businesses and other businesses under a huge amount of pressure. And I think we need to be looking, at the value that our small businesses bring, particularly to high streets. And, whether or not we've got our out of towns and whether they are so, their rates are different, and that we value what we've got at the heart of our community, so that all of those small businesses that add to our, the beating heart of our community is not rewarded, but that we understand the additional value that they bring, because it's not just about providing our retail and hospitality space, and that it's about places for people to meet. That feeds into well-being, which then has got cost-saving benefits to the NHS and all those sort of things. Risca over in Caerphilly, their NHS is fully involved in the high street over there, knowing the value the high streets and the centre of community brings. So yeah, I'd like to see the high streets being better supported with, business rate relief in some way, and that we really do look at the additional value that they bring, rather than just treating them like another business.
Yeah, it's a huge issue for lots of high street businesses, I think. We've had another question from Catherine Maybe, who says the transition from successful self-employment to forming a company and employing others can be really difficult, that transition. What support and advice is needed? So, Emma, I think that's a good one for you to look at. I mean, your client base, loads of those would have gone on that journey themselves. So you must pick up quite a lot of feedback around some of the challenges there. What's your take on that journey?
Yeah, I think it's a big deal setting up your own business and becoming responsible for other people's lives. And I think that's the bit where we're talking earlier about sort of risk and reward that needs to be recognised in the sort of by government. I think that transition, I think having the right people around you for advice and using other business owners as mentors as well. So I guess that's how the FSB comes in to support that as well, by being part of that network where you can engage with other people who are on a similar journey, but maybe a few steps ahead of you, so that you can get advice and sort of learn from other people's mistakes or steps as well. I think as a sort of finance professional, I think saying that, making sure that you've looked at sort of budgets and forecasts, and that you keep your management accounts and things up to date, and keep all of that side of things run smoothly, so you've got up-to-date data and are making the right decisions from the right information, I'd say, are sort of the most important things. But yeah, just understanding the sort of tools that you can get from organisations like the FSB to sort of help you through that process as well. But just speak to other people and learn from the people around you who are in similar situations, I would say.
Yeah, it's a huge transition period, isn't it? And I suppose linked to that, we've had a couple of questions around skills. So Llay Williams asks about what incentives might be put in place to help SMEs hire young people, and how that might look around apprenticeships and other sectors. And we also had one prior to the call around what steps should the next Welsh Gov take to improve skills training and address labour shortages. John, I know this is something you're really interested in. It's one of the reasons you got involved with FSB in the first place was around apprenticeships.
Yeah.
How does that feel for you at the moment in the business, and what do you think some of the action would need to be there?
So I'm a great believer in apprenticeships for a whole host of reasons, but I think it's great to see young people come into an organization, grow their skills whilst working, and also go through a training program to develop their own skills as well. And we've done a huge amount of we've had a huge amount of apprenticeships come through the business, and one in particular I can think of is now on our senior leadership team. They started with us as an apprentice and worked their way through the business, and they are a huge asset to the business and shape the culture of the organisation. Unfortunately, with apprenticeships now, I think it's getting harder and harder now to justify taking on an apprentice from a financial point of view. And I think for small businesses, particularly those employing, first or second employees, it's a really hard route now for a number of reasons. One, it's pretty expensive now compared to how it used to be. There's always that trade-off between actually training someone up, and therefore, the salary is a bit lower, but it's understanding you have to put a huge amount of effort into these apprentices. Um, but also there just isn't the support there that there used to be in terms of taking those apprentices on a journey with you, because it's not just the work, is it? It's all the other parts around the work. It's teaching them life skills, turning up to office on time. Um, there's lots of things we've had to address, personal challenges that people have had in accessing work, people that have come to us who would have been third generation unemployed, taking up an apprenticeship. Um, so I personally think how we're going to address the skills issue is we do need to look at apprenticeships, and how small businesses can be incentivized, not just incentivized financially, but supported effectively to take these apprentices on. Um, but also, how do you find good apprentices? What route do you go through? How are you supported once they're on board? Um, and I think with the right apprenticeship program, culture can be shaped effectively and you can have some fantastic people coming through. The other part I just want to highlight, we're in a high skill business, tech business. Um, we are losing a huge amount of really good people, and we have done over COVID, to London firms that are coming in, allowing people to work remotely, but paying them significantly more than we would be able to pay them. And that's been a huge challenge to us. So again, I think in terms of supporting businesses with their proposition to attract and retain great talent, we really pivoted on that front. Wales is a great place to work. Lifestyle's fantastic. Well-being can be fantastic working in Wales. That's why we are based in Wales. We love it here. But I think more can be done to attract skills away from places like London. So that would be my view.
Yeah, and I think that last bit is really interesting. We're not far away from London, are we? But we've got so much to offer. It's such a beautiful
Mm.
place to live. We've got some cool towns and cities across Wales. So yeah, absolutely. I think that's a really positive part of the pitch potentially for the next government. I suppose linked to that, we have had a question around digital innovation and technology. You can't go anywhere at the moment without talking about AI. Everyone's talking about the disruption from that perspective, and what that might do to the sort of employment landscape, but also to businesses and business productivity. I met with a business last week who had brought AI into the shop front for their online shop front, and basically got to a point where it automatically decides what to put in people's cart based on a conversation with an AI chatbot. So people are doing some really interesting things, I think. Victoria, you mentioned you're part of a small group of women in tech. I wonder if you have any insights on the tech side of things and how we help companies, adopt things when we're in such a period of transition, really.
Yeah, I guess my own lived experiences around innovation and the pots of innovation money that are available and how Welsh-based businesses are competing for that. I think the figures are around about Welsh-based businesses securing 2% of UKRI funding for research and innovation, despite our population being at 5%. So, we're getting significantly less innovation money into Wales. And it's not through lack of trying, apparently. We are getting enough applications in. So, yeah, I'm seeing quite a few lived examples of businesses that I've spoken to as well, where they're innovating within public sector through things like ours was the SBRI, which is now Contracts for Innovation. It's a fantastic program, and I'd recommend that all public bodies get involved in that. If they've got any challenges out there, that innovating with a small Welsh SME is the way forward, really, to look at a new way to procure, really, through challenge funding. But yeah, there are examples where small businesses have innovated with a public body, and then when it's come to procurement after the small business co-designing with them, that it's gone to an Irish-based business or a business from overseas. So we need to be looking at moving some of those innovative businesses. There are plenty out there. We've got loads of support through the FSB and organisations like FinTech Wales, etc. And I know CCR have got some of their groups around cybersecurity as well. But what we're not doing very well is moving those Welsh-based businesses from pilot stage into that elusive procurement supply chain. And was party to one discussion recently. There was what could Welsh SMEs do more of to be part of public procurement and get involved in innovation. But I think we need to look at it both ways, because we are Welsh SMEs are really understanding the challenge. But I'd like us to meet halfway. I'd like public bodies to become more SME ready and to think what they could be doing to bridge that gap, to meet us halfway so that we can get into procurement supply chains and get those pilot schemes from pilot into, so that we can export, that we're not holding on to the coattails of overseas software and that kind of thing, that we are able to produce it here in Wales and then export it, and headquarter those businesses in Wales. So it's getting them from pilot into mainstream. That's one of our biggest challenges.
Yeah, and procurement's a huge opportunity on that front, isn't it? The public sector's a huge customer and could do a lot more to help engage small firms. And we've got great small firms in Wales to take advantage of that potentially if we can stitch it up right. So I'm very conscious of time. We've got 3-4 minutes left. So there was one other question in the chat, which I'll mention. Well, actually, we've got 2 other questions, and perhaps we can capture these in the closing comments. So one is around how do we improve productivity? So Wales has the lowest productivity rates in the UK, so it's a major, major issue. And the last question is, what do you think the impact on business would be if the next Welsh Government reduced its exposure to international resource shocks? So if we could offset some of those things, some of those issues that cause a drop in confidence, that's a really, really tough one given the levers that Welsh Government's got, but perhaps an interesting one to think about. I'm going to tie both of those in with the last question if you can. So if you've got insights on those, bring them out. If you don't worry. But I suppose my last question is, what do you think the next Welsh Government should do to make a difference? Like, what's the one thing you think would make a real big difference to how SMEs in Wales operate, to our prosperity as a nation, to shift the confidence issue? If you could have one thing, what would it be? Emma, I'm going to go to you first. So apologies, because that's always the hardest question, I think. But over to you.
I do think for me, the biggest one is just looking properly at business rates. I think if we could get that working better for small businesses, it would just make such a difference to the economy overall. I think that the business rate structure at the moment is quite frankly bonkers. I've got a client who's got 6 retail sites and their rates bills range from, I think, about £600 to over £6,000. And it's not the one with the highest turnover that has the highest rates bill. It's completely crazy. And that one with the highest rates bill, I think there's a high chance that when that lease comes up for renewal next year, that they will look to not renew that. And that then makes another empty property on the high street and potentially puts 10 jobs at risk as well. So it's just completely counterintuitive to sort of what we're trying to achieve and sort of grow in the economy. So that for me is the big ask of the next government.
That's really clear. Thank you, Emma. And yeah, looking at the manifestos, every party has said something on business rates. So
Yeah,
I think this is a big issue that we need to pick up on after the election and hopefully see some positive change. Victoria, what about you?
I'm going to be really cheeky. I know you said one thing, but I'm going to weave 2 things into the same answer. So it's about really truly engaging with SMEs and really understanding them. I think there are so many professions out there that when you go into the profession, it can be different to what you ever expected. And I think walking the walk as an SME, it is very different to what a lot of people believe it's like. So really understanding SMEs and putting SMEs at the heart of everything. But that also is about, I'm sure I've mentioned it quite a few times here today, is about meeting those SMEs halfway. the public sector spend over 8 billion they spend over 8 billion annually, and increasing that amount by engaging with SMEs and meeting them halfway, and becoming more SME ready. That's what I would want all public bodies to do.
So you'll be pleased to hear, reading the manifestos, most of them say something about procurement as well. So look, hopefully there's an opportunity for change there, and we'll have our work cut out as FSB to try and shape that, I think, but an important area. Okay, John, I'm giving you the last word. You've already lost two opportunities for issues to pick,
No,
but
I've run out. Sorry. I'll move on. Hey.
Over to you.
So probably just trying to pull those points together in something sort of overarching, really, which is to support the aspiration of SMEs through a clear economic strategy. And what I mean by that is, Emma, in your example, you've got, a client with 6 outlets, and actually that sixth one with the highest business rate bill, it's really hard to continue. Well, how sad that the aspirations of that organization of growth are going to be held back. Then in terms of procurement, we've talked a lot about procurement. And I think a lot of this comes down to proper engagement with SMEs and giving SMEs a clear long-term economic strategy. And a final example I would give is we have engaged with Development Bank of Wales a number of times in our growth journey. The reality is Development Bank of Wales, they get our management information pack every quarter. They know our business really well. Yet it seems there's no joined up thinking across the business support organisations of here is an ambitious, growing business that is now cross-border and bringing jobs from England into Wales. And so I think more cross-collaboration around those business support organisations and Development Bank of Wales would be very welcome to support aspirational SMEs grow into that missing middle space that we all talk about, but we can't seem to break into. So I think all those things that we've highlighted can be delivered under a clear economic strategy that gives some certainty and confidence to the SME space.
Fantastic. Thanks, John. Also really clear and a good call to action, I think, as well. So we're going to draw the session to a close there. Hopefully that was interesting. Hopefully it was useful. We've shared, some insights from our statistics, but also given you first-hand experience from 3 excellent businesses, as you've heard just now. Keep in touch with us. Let us know what you think. If this kind of thing is interesting and you want us to do more of it, we'd be keen to hear about it. If there are particular issues you've heard you'd like to follow up on, don't hesitate to get in touch. We're always here and keen to engage with anyone and everyone who wants to make the environment a bit better for SMEs in Wales. So, a pivotal moment in the next couple of weeks. Hopefully, it'll be an interesting result, and we very much look forward to picking up the conversation after May the 7th. Best of luck to anyone who's standing, and hopefully speak to you all again soon. Thank you.